Guys, we're back over in Needham this week, and the framers actually got on site today. Mike's got his first lumber drop. I don't see any wood on the sill yet, but...
Not yet. Layout. So we have a lot of corners, and it's going to take us some time to make sure that everything remains square throughout the foundation and all the concrete work that we did. They snapped the reference line up the center of the foundation, the whole length. And so based off of that, they can check, off that is running parallel front and back, and then we're also working square off of that.
So a couple things. Number one, I want to go back to, you said there's a lot of corners.
A lot of corners.
Did you know that because of all the people on YouTube telling us there's a lot of corners? Or did you count them? Okay, YouTube,
yeah,
I figured
it was YouTube. I had no idea until last week.
The center line, the reference point, this is one of the best things I think that we do on our jobs. But let's just talk about how did we determine where that line was going to be? Well,
for here, we set it up in an area where we could get it pretty much as long as possible.
Gotcha. So
it's not technically centered, but yeah.
So as far right and as far left as you can go, snapping what we're calling center.
Yeah, a control
air quotes, line. Right? A control line, and then off of that we're basically 6, 8, 10, or 3,
pulling square.
3, 4, 5 pulling square, and then we have our wall plate, which are over our haunch footings.
Correct.
But those are perfectly perpendicular to that control line. From there, you're taking that control line in there, and then you're snapping all of your control lines up here, perfectly parallel to that, and then you'll be able to do the same. And the thing here is this foundation could technically be off square with all these corners in areas. So we want to be working off one control line, and that line's actually going to transfer floor to floor to floor. So everything that we're doing is being built off that control line and not relying on what outside of face of foundation is. So that plate in some spots might kick in or out. It's really going to stay off that control line in the center there. So this line is referencing backside of sill.
Correct.
And from here, let's first talk about what you did last week. So this is typically a little bit more rough.
Yep.
What's going on?
So we smoothed it out. We ran around with a grinder, took all, sometimes you get a little bit of buildup here and there. So we just wanted to get as flat as we could. And so when we install our plates, we're going to put down acoustical sealant, then your normal sill seal, and then another couple beads of sealant, and really sandwich the plates in there to air seal this connection between the top of the foundation and then the start of your framing.
And that's good, and like you said, it's giving you that air seal, but furthermore, we're actually going to be fentrum taping, from siga, from our sheathing to our foundation here.
Yep.
And that's really like our first line of defense for air control. But then that acoustical sealant sandwich on the backside is just our secondary, kind of redundant, again, trying to be redundant with making sure that we build a really airtight house so we can control the climate on the inside. Question for you. How long did it take you to grind the top of this whole foundation?
Maybe an hour and a half.
An hour and a half, and there's a couple hundred, 500, 400 something feet?
400. 400
feet of top of foundation. We're talking about, just smoothing it out, getting the rough spots.
Yeah, like I'm not going polished with it,
Right.
So we're just taking out the high spots, flattening it out so we get a nice seal.
Yeah, and that way, like in those areas that you do have like the little buildup, you're not relying on that acoustical sealant to fill an oversized gap or trying to crush down on top of something.
Yep.
An hour well spent preps the framer for a nice top of foundation. I actually saw a trick on another project, not one of mine, but Kyle from R&R Buildings. He actually took a cinder block or a brick, and on a green foundation, you can actually take it and you basically rub the top of the foundation with it while it's still green, and it will give you a very similar finish to it. Oh. So something we can try on another one, but for an hour's worth of work.
But you'd have to be,
You have to be top of wall.
I was going to say, we were not at top of wall, and then, by the time they come and strip the forms and everything off.
Yeah. So what I mean by
and cinder blocks are heavy. Grinder's nice and light.
Well, that's true. It's probably the same amount of time. You're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
What Mike means is we have forms that came up above our wall. So if that concrete was at the top of our wall, we'd be able to do that. But it wasn't. It was down below. Like you said, you stripped it off a few days later. Everything's hard. But like I said, an hour going through this. And you also made sure that all of our bolt heads were the same. Yeah. How'd you go about doing that?
So they were sticking up a little bit higher. What we want to do is we're going to catch our first plate And then the second plate, we don't want the anchor bolt sticking up and through that. It'll allow us to go through with a planer and shave anywhere, because, you know, after you got all this in, if we got to take a quarter out of it, it's a little bit quicker and easier than trying to shim it up. So I set those, so we'll get our sandwich, bolt that first plate down, and then we can recess the second plate to cover the top of this. And then,
so you just made a little quick jig for height, made sure that they were at the height our framer wanted.
Yep.
And same thing, we obviously, you coordinated with the concrete guy, they get those bolts in, but stuff adjusts up and down ever
Things
so
move.
Slightly.
Yeah.
And rather than the framer having to come back and zip these at a later date, made a quick jig, made them all the same height, made sure that they were gonna work structurally and also for the framer. So we got our lumber. You guys are gonna start setting plates tomorrow.
Yes.
Our sill detail is a single or a double plate?
So originally it was a single, we increased it to a double
Why'd we do that?
to allow us to plane that second one to adjust any height discrepancies.
So our first plate is going to go on the concrete tight.
Yep.
And then what you're saying is you're going to take your second plate and adjust the thickness of that second plate to handle any discrepancies up and down.
Correct.
And then from there, we got our rim joist and our floor joist, and we're set at the height and we're going.
Up,
all right.
up and up.
We'll have floor framing going in, hopefully a dance floor at some point. You guys have also been working, RJ O'Connell has been working on site work, getting backfill. We've talked about how many dump trucks that we're bringing in. How many are we up to thus far? Do we know?
I have lost track.
It's going to be 100 something, I think, when we're all said and done.
It's definitely over 100 so far.
So we got our second driveway cut in. We're starting to see the front elevation come closer to our sidewalk for our front entrance.
Yep.
And what we're standing in front of here is the one-car garage, but we got some green pipe. So what exactly is going on here, and where does it go?
So that, our downspouts for our gutters are going to tie into that drainage. So this is, you know, up almost at, you know, the top of the wall. The gutters will tie into that. It runs around the outside of the house. It's actually broken right here, so we're standing in a split. Everything from the left side runs out and around to the back side of the house, and then here on the right side of our front entry runs around the garage out back.
And so for reference, this is our front entry.
Yep.
And our front door will be tucked in on the left here. Nice windows looking into our kitchen on the front here. One-car garage. So this here goes around, collects all the downspouts. Where's this stuff go?
Out back. So we have 20 galleys that were installed last week.
What is a galley?
It's a 4 by 4 by 4 foot tall concrete structure that has some holes around the outside so water can escape once it, you know, all the water, you know, comes to the back. It'll fill up here.
So we're still going around. We're looping around. 2-car garages here. Got another downspout. Looping around here. Another downspout here. This is all connecting to the same. So we have 4-inch coming out of the ground and what, 8-inch running around the
6.
6-inch. I was close.
Yeah.
6-inch running around, and this is our galley.
Yep. A whole bunch of galleys.
Whole bunch of galleys.
20.
20 galleys. So concrete perforated containers filled with stone?
No.
No.
Wrapped with stone. So
Wrapped.
you have a foot of stone underneath. You set your galleys, pack them in tight, and then there's stone in between the galleys to help hold them in place.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom of the galley flares out a little bit and it has a wider foot on it. And so you fill in between, but the middle of it is wide open.
So water is being dumped from the roof back into this system.
Yep.
And what this is doing is allowing this to fill up water and then slowly disperse back into groundwater.
Correct.
And that groundwater, if it were to impact our basement, is that also coming back to this spot?
The groundwater?
Underneath the concrete slab?
No.
So that is its own drainage system.
That's completely separate. That gets pumped out, and actually we can tie into the street.
To the stormwater in the street.
Yep.
So that is addressed completely separate from our roof drainage. And then this here, wrapped in a filter fabric, obviously, so you're not getting sediment into the galleys, but this just gets filled over?
Yeah, we'll have a, there'll be a cover over here so you can check it, but.
What would be the purpose of checking it?
If you ever had an issue.
Okay.
So, fingers crossed.
Could you get in there and like clean it out if you had to?
I'm sure you could.
Okay. So we'll have a little manhole.
Yeah, small 18-inch.
18-inch manhole up at grade, which we're still actually pretty
low.
low.
Yeah.
So have a few feet above this manhole to be able to access that if needed. But at this point, this is done, and you can actually see more over here. I guess you see the rock kind of crushed around it, and that will all get wrapped up and then covered. Buried. Left as is. Never to be seen again. Very good. All right, guys. Stay tuned next week. Hopefully we'll have that. I mean, I'm not even going to say hopefully. Stay tuned next week when you guys get to see the first floor framing go down. We got some big eye joists. We got some big structural material as well as 1 1/8 subfloor. We'll talk all about that next week.